Right, in today's video, ChatGPT is going to help me get my M235i with the N55 engine to 500,000 miles. How am I going to get this to 500,000 miles? Well, stay tuned. In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly everything I'm going to do to get it there. You guys loved the last AI video, so in this video, we're doing another one. First of all though, we're going to get it started, and this is going to be key point number 1. This isn't going to be a video where I take about 5 years to get into it. Point number 1 is letting the oil warm up to temperature before I drive it. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you and telling you my plans of how I'm going to make my N55 and my M235i last over 500,000 miles. We're going to be discussing all things that can fail, my plans to get it to 500,000 miles, things I do to make it basically stay healthy in everyday life as well. Go ahead and talk about the first point of the video, and it's the oil temperature warm-up procedure that I run. When I get in the car, I let the oil get to around 35-40 degrees Celsius before I start driving it. And then when I'm driving it, say for example on these roads here, I don't go above 2k RPM until the oil temp is about 70 degrees Celsius. So operating temperature, I bring the car to red line, I drive it hard, I rev it hard, it has a hard time, but not when the oil is cold. Number one reason for this is oil is thicker when it's cold, so when it's thinner, and when it's warmer for example, it lubricates better and it's not an issue for rod bearings and all that kind of stuff. That's the oil situation I do. Another little thing I do when I get home after a really long drive, or if I've driven the car hard, is I measure the oil temperature. It raises the RPMs to around 1000 RPM. It just gives time for that oil to circulate through the hot turbo so you don't risk any crystallization in it. If you're wondering, crystallization in the turbo is not a good thing. We're going to go through 7 quick points of what parts will fail on the car before I reach that milestone. Number 1, and it's also something which I've had to replace recently, the valve cover gasket. Let's turn this off because the injectors are so loud you guys can barely hear me speak on the audio. So we all know what a valve cover is. However, on the N55s, they're very prone to leaking, especially before 100,000 miles. If you've got an N55 that hasn't got a leaking valve cover gasket before 100k, then massive respect to you because that's very hard to do. So in my case, I had to replace mine around 80,000 miles with a genuine gasket and also a genuine new valve cover. But now that that is done, that's good for another probably 100,000 miles or at least 80,000. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is gasket. The next big gasket we can talk about is the oil pan gasket. This is basically on the opposite side of the engine on the bottom. That covers obviously the belly pan where all the sump oil is. It holds all of the oil and it also covers all the rod bearings and all that kind of stuff. I'm underneath my car quite regularly and so far so good. It's not leaking at the moment. However, these are prone to leak, and when you do have to place the gasket, it is a very good idea to go down the line of changing the rod bearings and all that kind of stuff. Now, we've talked about oil starvation issues on the N55 quite a bit, so when the time comes that the oil pan gasket has to be changed, this would be an optimal time to fit some upgraded rod bearings as well as either a baffled sump or the twin oil pickup like the S55. That does lead us on to our next part of rod bearings. These will fail and they obviously will need replacing at some point. I've seen a lot of stock engines, especially on the later models of the M235i and the 135i with the electronic wastegate, go around 200k miles, but they will need changing before obviously 500k. Now, this little manifold piece here is your inlet manifold, and this over time will clog up and will need walnut blasting. You'll know this will need doing because the car will become sluggish, the performance won't be very good, and this will be something which I'd recommend getting done at least every 100,000 miles. Underneath this engine cover is the PCV system, and basically this is fixed into the valve cover gasket itself. Now, the crankcase ventilation system, which is basically PCV for short, will clog or leak over time, so if this is the case, you can just change it by getting a whole new valve cover, which basically are killing 2 birds with 1 stone by changing the valve cover gasket as well, so you can prevent that leak. You've also got Vanos solenoids. These are kind of not so common to be an issue, but they obviously will clog and fail over time, so it's good to clean and replace them periodically. And point number 7 is just oil consumption. This is very common past 150,000 miles, especially with turbo wear. Now let's talk about the turbo. The stock turbo on this car can kind of last to 150,000 miles, but 500k is definitely going to need some work. Common problems you're going to have are wastegate rattle, so obviously that's going to need replacing, and basically the main problem on the N55 is the charge pipe, so we want to talk about boost problems regarding that and that's going to be the charge pipe. You want to fit that with a metal one. You're also going to get intercooler leaks, pipe leaks, boost leaks, and all that kind of stuff. And it's very important to get the oil feed lines for the water and the oil into the turbo cleaned or replaced regularly, because they're going to clog, especially if you don't do a cool down procedure and prevent the crystallization like I mentioned earlier. This would be a good time to mention my video on N55 reliability. It'll be up in the screen in one of these corners. If you want to see that, I made a whole in-depth video of how I keep my N55 reliable. Now let's quickly blast through the cooling system on these cars. Now it's an electronic water pump. These are usually prone to fail around 100k miles to 120k. So obviously in the next probably 30k miles, I'm going to have to be looking at replacing mine, which will be a genuine BMW one. The thermostat usually done alongside the water pump, so you can kind of do both at the same time with that. The radiator, prone to leaks around 150,000 miles, so obviously a new one of them will be needed at some point. And the expansion tank, this cracks with age, discolours, so eventually that'll need replacing, but for now it's doing its job. I will look at changing it because you can't really see the water line in it because it's getting old and obviously discoloured. Coolant hoses heat cycle to death over time. This is obviously quite a common issue, especially with this top one here. It's very prone to cracking and bursting, especially when you're on the motorway. And the heater core is often overlooked, but annoying if it does go. Now we're going to quickly talk about the fuel system on these cars. And for anyone new, on these N55s in the M235i and the 135, the high pressure fuel pump is positioned just down there. There it is, just there. So fuel injectors, the Index 12 ideally we're going to be talking about. The older ones fail and leak over time, so the Index 12 ones are kind of the ones you want to go for. And the high pressure fuel pump, the lifespan on this, which I just pointed out to you guys just down there, is around 100k to 150k. However, I have seen these go to a lot more, and obviously if it does fail, it'll be a perfect time to upgrade it to either a Bosch one or some one which you can increase the flow with. And the spark plugs and coils, I replace them. Well, I replace the spark plugs every 10,000 miles, the coils probably every 40,000. Now we're going to talk about sensors and electronics, because obviously these are something which are kind of overlooked. They play a very, very main part in keeping the engine functional, as we know. First thing we're going to talk about are O2 sensors. These are very common to go, especially if your car is tuned, so look to be changing these every 100 to 150,000 miles on a stock car. The mass airflow sensor, or the MAF sensor, this is prone to go as well. You can get away with cleaning it or replacing it. It can throw some pretty dangerous codes, which are sometimes overlooked, and it's very annoying when it does. And the camshaft position sensor. It's a rare item with mileage. You'll probably get a code when it starts playing up. Two other sensors we'll talk about, the water temperature sensor and the oil temperature sensor. Again, you'll get a code when these start playing up, but obviously if you want to be extra cautious with it, replace them every 100,000 miles. I'm going to talk about gearbox, and specifically my car because it is a manual. The common things to look out for that I'll be looking out for, as my car is a manual, are clutch and flywheel. Expect to replace these probably a couple of multiple times, depending on how I drive it, obviously. Next thing we'll talk about is probably the drive shaft centre support bearing. It's often overlooked, but something which can go quite commonly. Differential bushings, seals, you know, they're common as well, and another thing which can be overlooked, so it's good to just be on top of them and checking them, making sure you're going underneath your car regularly when it's safe to do so, and checking for leaks and all that kind of stuff. Shifter bushings and linkages, at the moment everything is really, really good, so not much of a worry there. And transmission mounts will sag and cause sloppy feel, so that's just something to bear in mind. And the transmission fluid. Going to be replacing that probably every 50 to 60,000 miles. We obviously can't forget suspension and steering parts. It's all good getting the engine there, but would the car get to 500,000 miles? So things that I've done, obviously the car has different springs on it, and it's recently had all new shock absorbers, as well as lower control arms, drop links, thrust bushings, basically everything. Obviously you'll get knocking noises when these are an issue, and you'll be able to tell which ones are which and then replace them as needed. Another thing to mention is the steering rack bush, quite common on these two series models, so that is something I have done in the last 4,000 miles. And then you've just got standard BMW stuff, like windows not going down when you want them to, the central locking system failing, rust appearing on the car, all this kind of stuff. That's stuff you have to take care of when you see it. For example, I've just noticed this little rust spot on this bolt here, so what I would do is I would take this one out, I would treat it, get it all back to kind of a nice condition, and then repaint it and put it back. So just something that I can do to obviously stop the rust from spreading. Now we can close this because we're done talking about this for now. Now we've got to see if it'll actually start up. I've made this video bigging up how reliable this car is and how I'm going to get it to 500,000 miles, but will it even start? Every time, faultlessly. Oil temp is now 40 degrees, so obviously I can feel like I can drive this now. Oh, flip's sake, it's just dropped. No, when I mention the oil situation, obviously if I'm in an emergency, I'm not going to sit on my drive waiting for the oil to get to 40 degrees before I drive it. It's just stuff I do because I try to leave with a little bit more time. I let the car warm up for about 3 minutes, then it's at 40 degrees Celsius, and it's just really helping that engine for the longevity of the car. And I do absolutely love this car. It sounds good, it drives amazingly, it's fast enough, it is just an all-round perfect car. Combine it with a manual gearbox, perfect. And obviously, if you want to see more videos of me driving the car, POV drives, what the exhaust system sounds like, I've got tons of videos on the channel, so feel free to check them out. But there we go. That is how I'm going to get my car to 500,000 miles with the help of ChatGPT. It's given me a load of information. Whether I'll get the car there will be a different story. I may change it before, but it would be a pretty cool thing to do to get this car to 500k. And so far, so good, but I'd have to do a lot of miles to be able to get it there. If you want to see more videos like this though, be sure to check out the channel. Got loads of N55 content, specifically my M235i, so if you want to see more information, check it out. That's going to be a wrap for today's video. If you did enjoy it, you can leave it a like, you can subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content, the choice is yours, and be sure to leave any comments in the comment section down below, and I'll be sure to answer them. Apart from that, thank you guys so much for watching, catch you in the next video.